3 lifelong friends, 6 trusty balls, and endless NFL takes. Welcome to 3 Guys, 6 Balls NFL podcast. All right, welcome everyone to episode 2 of 3 Guys, 6 Balls NFL podcast. I want to say congratulations to you guys. We made it to our second episode.
I appreciate the thank you.
No one thought we'd get to 2.
I also want to say thank you to everybody who's followed us on social media so far. We appreciate the support. Please continue to watch our videos, follow us, like us, and share our posts. We appreciate it. So today we're going to get into some more NFL topics. We're going to talk about free agency winners and losers after a full week of free agency. We're going to get into more position groups in the NFL draft. And then towards the end of our show today, we're going to play a little game about the NFL draft as well. To get started, we're going to talk about free agency winners and losers. It's been about a week since free agency opened. And so we've each picked one winner and one loser. Let's start with Will. Who do you have as your biggest winner from free agency?
My biggest winner from free agency has got to be the Washington Commanders. They have made quite a few moves. They've re-signed actually 12 of their own free agents. They've gotten in key offensive line pieces with Laramie Tunsil, key wide receiver group with Deebo Samuel. They're bringing back their veteran core group. Dan Quinn is making moves out there, bringing in a stout defense to compete, but really against the Eagles. That's who they're trying to compete against right now. They're beefing up their interior defensive line. They brought in Sheldon Day. He returned on a one-year deal. They're bringing in more defensive linemen from everywhere they can get their hands on. Clelin Ferrell on the defensive end, Jalen Holmes, Jacob Martin. They're doing everything they can to stack that defensive line and linebackers, keeping Bobby Wagner in-house, so that way they can compete against the run. Now, as we saw in the Super Bowl, just because you stop Saquon doesn't mean you're going to beat the Eagles. That's what everybody thought, and that just didn't end up being the case. So I think my winners this offseason, and it pains me, wholeheartedly pains me as a Dallas fan to say, but this Washington Commanders team is making the right moves right now with their quarterback on a rookie deal, exactly what the 49ers were trying to do. They just couldn't get there. They're making a bunch of one-year deals. I was looking at this for their team. They have, in the next 3 years, they only have 7 players still under contract in 3 years from now. So everybody is short-term right now. Make a deal. Let's make a run for it to bring some power back to Washington.
The move I really liked from the Commanders was getting Laramie Tunsil at tackle. I don't understand what the Texans are doing. I understand he's kind of on the older side for a tackle, but he's not old by any means. You trade this Pro Bowl tackle from the Texans and you send him to the Commanders, who needed a tackle. So I think that's a great move for the Commanders. Bad move for the Texans. I think you could make the Texans a loser just based off of that move alone. But I do really like the move for the Commanders. I think that's only going to help Jaden Daniels and this offense as a whole. It's going to be really scary because they were already dangerous as it is. All right, so let's go to Avery. Who's your biggest winner from the free agency period?
So there were a few that I liked. I chose the Chicago Bears just because I'll shit on them all the time. I just think most of what they do is just bad and it never changes. But I like that they kept the majority of their line and then a lot of their defense. I'm also a big fan of Dennis Allen. He was at the Saints for a couple of years. I just like him. I'll be honest, I'm kind of a fan of younger coaches. I think that especially in college, it's kind of changed in college, which has made me notice it in the professional. I'm just going to go on a quick tangent real quick. A lot of college basketball coaches, like legendary ones, have retired within like the last 5 years. And a big reason is for the NIL. The whole landscape is shifting, and people need to make adjustments. And some of the old heads, if they're legends or not, just can't really keep up with it because the entire job description has changed. And I feel like the NFL, although not going through a similar shift, things are still shifting. And I think that some of these younger guys that have something to prove, I feel like they just end up doing a little better. I see the same thing and just in the workforce in general. I mean, if you've got young guys with something that they can gain, like they're not at a dead-end job, they're at a place where they can move up. I feel like you got these guys that are hungry. I usually compare it to college and professional players. College players are playing to be able to make money, whereas NFL players are making money and are doing what is required to continue making money. Whereas I feel like the passion in college is a little bit more. All that to say, I just like younger coaches. I think that they bring a new energy. I think that they can relate to the guys a little bit more. I think they can see the game a little bit more, and I think they aren't as set in their ways. I think they're a little bit more malleable as far as changing with the times. I like the Chicago Bears for just what they've been doing thus far. I don't think it's over yet. Another one is Chris Godwin. I was looking into that. He signed with the Bucks and he took a lot less than he could have. I think I saw something saying like up to like 20 million more he could have gotten, but he was just kind of content. It was a very team friendly sign. And I think that is a microcosm of a larger thing, which is just a better culture. If you've got a guy willing to take a little bit less money, I think he said it was mainly, with his family in mind, not wanting to uproot them. And I think that just is a positive trait. And then just doing that for the team. I mean, the team doesn't even care if it's for them or for just, his own reasons. I think that's something that boosts morale and makes guys play with a little more fun and just work a little better. But yeah, mainly the Bears and then a little bit of Tampa Bay just through luck and maybe just building a good culture.
Yeah, I like what you said about Chris Godwin. You don't really see that type of player anymore who takes significantly less than what he could get. It's all about getting more money than the next guy nowadays. So I definitely think that's a good point about Chris Godwin. I also agree with you about the Chicago Bears. They were one of my winners of free agency. Going to their offensive line that you mentioned, they gave up 68 sacks last year. So you have this new head coach who came in, Ben Johnson, and one of the first things he does is he addresses their offensive line. He signs or trades for Jonah Jackson and trades with the Chiefs for Jared Tooney, who's been a first-team All-Pro the last 2 seasons. So you get 2 guards. And then in free agency, they signed center Drew Dahlman from the Falcons. And he was a part of an offensive line that gave up only 32 sacks last year. Only 6 teams gave up less sacks than the Falcons. So you have this experienced guy who comes in along with an All-Pro the last 2 seasons to fortify this offensive line and give Caleb Williams some more time. I think that 68 number is going to come way down. So I definitely think the Bears are a huge winner. For my winner, I'm going to stay in the same division as the Bears. I'm actually going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. And the reason I'm going with them as the winner of free agency is because you lost Sam Darnold at quarterback. So now it's the J.J. McCarthy era. You have this young quarterback who's coming off an injury, and you need to support him. You already have a pretty good team overall. You have Justin Jefferson, one of the best receivers in the NFL. And just let me read some of the moves that they made here. So along with the Bears, they did give up a lot of sacks last year. They gave up 49 sacks. So they needed to add some beef on the offensive line. They signed center Ryan Kelly from the Colts. He didn't make the Pro Bowl last year, but he's made the Pro Bowl 4 times in his career, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2023. And then they also signed another offensive lineman from the Colts, Will Fries. And the Colts also gave up only 32 sacks last year. So here's another offensive line where this team is pulling from offensive lines that did well. And so I think that's a big win for the Minnesota Vikings because when you have this young guy, J.J. McCarthy, who's coming in with not a lot of experience, he's going to need that little bit of extra time to get the ball down the field to his receivers. They also re-signed Aaron Jones and traded for Jordan Mason from the 49ers to help their running game. They ranked in the bottom half of the league last year with 109.1 rushing yards per game. And so I think adding Jordan Mason especially is going to help them with a 2-back system to have a little bit of a change of pace and keep their running backs fresh, which is going to also help J.J. McCarthy. And then on the defensive side, they signed Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave to give them some interior pass rush help. This team right now, I mean, they won 14 games a year ago. They don't have really one glaring spot where there's a big weakness. They did everything they could so far to support J.J. McCarthy, and I think there's a couple spots where they could get better, probably at safety, which is probably what they'll target in the first round of the draft, but they don't have a huge hole right now. And so that's why I consider them one of the biggest winners in free agency so far. So let's go back over to Will. Who do you have as your biggest loser of free agency?
Right now I have my biggest loser, and it was a real toss-up between the 49ers and Aaron Rodgers, him specifically. I think I'm going to stick with Aaron Rodgers here. The guy has had one hell of a career, right? Like, that's inarguable. 3 straight MVPs and a 4th one. Super Bowl champion. The guy has had an amazing career. 2023 happens. He has one play, and he tears his Achilles, ruptures his Achilles.
I should have
And
laughed. That's not funny.
It's not funny. It is quite sad. But given the whole scenario where he runs out with the American flag and then all this hype, the Jets are back, come on, Jets, Jets, and then the first drop back, boom goes dynamite. And then the following season, he comes back and it's the same thing. Let's run out, let's do it, Jets, here we go. Rodgers, baby, the Jets are back. And then nothing, right? It was just consistent disappointment over and over and over again. And now he's sitting here, got cut by the Jets. They decided to part ways. I think that's how it was officially worded. There was rumors that came out that he begged him to stay, which is never good. It is just a consistent cycle of what is happening with Aaron Rodgers, and he's being deemed a drama queen in the NFL, which is seemingly fair, but also not fair at the same time because, like you mentioned, everybody's trying to make their money. But he's now sits here. We are just over a month out from the draft. If you haven't signed your free agent quarterback at this point, you're going to wait. You're going to wait to see what happens in the draft. You're going to wait to see what can come your way. And the teams looking for a quarterback are not looking for a veteran starter quarterback. They're looking for a veteran backup. And so that is not that he couldn't do it. I just don't think it's a position that Aaron Rodgers wants to find himself in currently, and he wants to be the head guy. He knows he can do it. I think he probably could lead a team to a fairly successful season, but it's getting there, and it's having a team take a chance on you. And at this point, because he's not signed, I don't think he's going to find the deal he's looking for. And unfortunately, he might find himself waiting for another quarterback to get hurt for him to find a team after the season already starts.
Dak Prescott.
Okay, now we're just wishful thinking.
So speaking of Aaron Rodgers, first of all, I don't believe that rumor about Aaron Rodgers begging the Jets to stay. That just seems like it's completely different than what we've heard about Aaron Rodgers throughout his entire career.
I agree. It seems, but even for those rumors to come out, every rumor has to have some kernel of truth. What probably happened is that they were in the middle of negotiations, and he probably said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I would like to stay," and then some preteen social media manager ran with he's begging to stay. So yeah, there's probably no real truth in that, but it went out there and that just makes your image look bad.
Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to get into my loser of free agency because it's somewhat related to Aaron Rodgers, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got to apologize to my wife and to my father-in-law because they're Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and I'm wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers jersey today, but they are...
To rub it in.
Yes, to rub it in.
I'd like to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Okay, but this is how bad the Steelers' free agency has been so far. You look at who they have at quarterback right now. They've signed Mason Rudolph as their quarterback.
Woo!
He was with the Steelers. He's been with the Steelers for a long time. He was with the Titans last season, but he was with the Steelers for a long time. So guess who is out there as a free agent quarterback right now? Russell Wilson, who was your quarterback last season, who knows your offense. And by the way, he knows DK Metcalf, who your team just traded for from when he played in Seattle. He was DK Metcalf's quarterback in Seattle. And you're just going to let him go out there and meet with your division rival, the Cleveland Browns, instead of signing him back to your offense? Who else are you going to get? You're going to wait for Aaron Rodgers, a 41-year-old quarterback who doesn't know your team, who just came off a terrible season with the Jets? No, you can't go into the season with your quarterback as Mason Rudolph, okay? There is still time. Yes, Russell Wilson's not signed. Aaron Rodgers is not signed. But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the answer. They could go to the NFL draft and sign a young quarterback, which I think is a very high possibility. But with that being said, I think they should sign Russell Wilson back to their team and then draft a quarterback and then let him sit behind Russell Wilson for however long you have him on your team. The reason why you can't have Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback, just listen to these stats. So the Steelers averaged 22.4 points per game last season with Wilson as the quarterback, which ranked 16th, which was right in the middle. The last time they averaged over 20 points per game was when Ben Roethlisberger was their quarterback in 2021. Since then, they've averaged 18.1 points per game, and in 2023, 17.9 points per game. Guess who was the starting quarterback for a majority of those games? Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph is not a good quarterback statistically. Just to read some of his stats here. 2019, 10 games, 62.2% completion percentage, 13-9 touchdown to interception ratio, 82 quarterback rating. 2020, 5 games, 58.1% completion, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 87.7 rating. 2021, played 2 games, 60.3%, 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 70.8 quarterback rating. Then in 2023, he played in 4 games, which was by far the best 4-game span of his entire career, where he completed 74.3% of his passes, threw 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and had a 118 quarterback rating. And also last season with the Titans, 8 games, 64%, 9 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and then an 80.1 quarterback rating. So statistically, he's not good. He's had a 4-game span over his entire career where he's been good. And outside of that, it's not much to look at, honestly. If you're the Steelers, I love the move that you made for DK Metcalf to get another receiver. You needed that for your offense. But you cannot go into the season with Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback. If you don't sign another guy, even if you draft a quarterback and sit him behind Mason Rudolph, what good is sitting a young quarterback that you draft behind Mason Rudolph going to do?
Mason can show him the ropes, show him how to be a great winning quarterback that scores lots of points, more than 20.
He can show him how to hit Myles Garrett in the head with a helmet.
He did, yeah. No, he has not forgotten that for sure.
But I think one thing to note, whether it's a good note or bad note, is Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season by record. You say all these bad things about Mason Rudolph.
How many playoff games have they won in the last 10 plus years?
I mean, the answer is
Megan to come in. Megan can tell us. Have her come in and tell us the number.
The answer is not a lot. I don't know that number off the top of my head, but it's not a lot. But when you're looking at just getting by, they're trying to make all the right moves to do that. And I don't think I'm arguing for Mason Rudolph being the guy. That is not it.
Sounds like you are.
You make some solid points with Russell Wilson, but with how much media comes out about Russell Wilson doing his high knees on the airplane to and from games, and it doesn't seem like, just like the Raiders, the Steelers have a persona. You have to be a from Pittsburgh, or have the Pittsburgh mentality to be able to own that team. Russell Wilson does not have it. It is not Mr. Unlimited. That's not Pittsburgh. That's not where that, honestly, of the 2 quarterbacks, I'm surprised Russell Wilson didn't go to New York and Justin Fields stay in Pittsburgh. I think it's a vibe thing is the real reason why they're not signing him back. Fit or not, I don't think he passes the vibe check in Pittsburgh.
I see that. I just think regardless, you can't hold out for Aaron Rodgers to see what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. He's not going to do anything for your team. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. He's 41.
Tom Brady did it.
Yeah, but Aaron Rodgers is not Tom Brady. He's not.
He might be the closest thing we have.
I think he is definitely the closest thing. He is the next best thing, as they say. Career stat-wise, next best thing.
Aside from Super Bowls.
Sure, for sure.
Aaron Rodgers almost went to the Super Bowl about 6 times.
Well, actually, here, let's play a little game. Who would you put in between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady?
What's the parameters?
Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
So hold on. We go in like active currently? Is that the question?
In their prime in the last 20 years.
Josh Allen?
Well, I don't think I put
You'd
Josh
put him
Allen.
ahead of?
I don't put Josh Allen.
Absolutely.
In their prime. Are we talking all players in their prime?
I don't care about Aaron Rodgers winning a Super Bowl and Josh Allen not having a Super Bowl. Josh Allen is a better quarterback with the way the game is played today than Aaron Rodgers. That guy, if you don't have Allen, if you don't have Josh Allen on your team, the Bills would be.
How else are you going to lose the AFC
terrible.
Championship?
Yeah, but the same could be said. The same could be said for the Packers, right? Or whoever the heck he's on now, right? If the Packers don't have Aaron Rodgers, who followed Brett Favre, that team would have been terrible.
The Jets had Aaron Rodgers; they were terrible.
Different Aaron Rodgers. We're not talking Aaron Rodgers in his prime. We've got Josh Allen in his prime right now.
But you were talking about Brady when he was 41.
Well, that guy didn't eat a strawberry until after he was retired. That guy is just built different. There is no real comparison to Tom Brady. There just isn't. And I know that's going to make some old people real upset. You say, well, Joe Montana. All right, sure. But no, also no. So, I don't know if there is another, in the last 20 years, a quarterback that I would place at any time in between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady.
I'd say, I mean, you could say like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees. I mean, both stellar careers. I mean, I think Brees only won one Super Bowl.
I would take Breeze over Rodgers. I would.
I probably would.
I don't like
I
Aaron
did.
Rodgers.
I
don't like
did
Aaron
when they were
Rodgers'
both in their prime in fantasy. So I can back that up.
I don't like Aaron Rodgers' attitude, to be honest. I never have.
Okay, but I'm gonna run op for that because I see it as it's like, okay, we only see what the media is presenting to us. It makes every other bench player look like little saints that are like, oh, we'll just take whatever's given because we just assume since they signed the deal, it must have been drama free. I think Aaron Rodgers, I think it started when he was against COVID and started speaking out against it. I think at that point, that kind of media affair that, we had with Rodgers kind of went out the window, where now he's kind of the villain. He's going to start saying more stuff. Once he says that, he's kind of, sponsors are a little more out the window. He's kind of like, I'm going to do whatever I want now. Which, as far as maybe being a fan of the team, of the Jets, of the Packers, maybe like, okay, yeah, it's a little old. But at the same time, like, the same thing is like getting your money. It's like, dude, I can't be mad if a player on my favorite team, like, got a ton of money. Like, good for him. Of course, it might not be good for me. I would love it if he took the league minimum and stayed here and wanted to play just for the love of the game, and so we had more money to sign other people. So, like, the thing is like, I mean, I can be upset at you, but that doesn't mean that, like, I would have done anything differently. It's just not, your interests aren't my interests. Aaron Rodgers is like the Trump of the NFL. It's like he says something, he coughs wrong, it's on SportsCenter. And I think it's just one of those things where he is drama. Like, he has aura and presence where he does anything, he says anything, we're all going to hear about it. And I think that because of that and how just generally jaded, he's got that jaded dad energy where, like, once you get married and you're like got nothing to really, like, I don't want to say work for, but you're not trying to impress anyone. When you've given up in life, no, like, you're not trying to, like, impress people the way you would if you're single or something. And so, like, you kind of have this energy of like, they don't like me, I'm going to say my dad jokes. If they don't like it, I don't care. I still got kids. They have to laugh because they got to get fed. So they know the drill.
I think the Rodgers drama started a bit earlier than that, actually, with the back and forth between him and Mike McCarthy when Mike McCarthy got let go. That was the first not real instance, but the first more recent instance of an ownership group, in this case, they don't have an owner, an ownership group picking a player over a coach. So that same thing happened. Well, we saw a similar argument between whether Robert Kraft picked Brady or Belichick, and we all saw how that played out. But with Rodgers and his whole, well, I don't like the way I'm being treated here, and Mike McCarthy, X, Y, and Z. That's when that really started. And I think because of that, because a player started speaking out against a coach in any sort of way at all, I do think that you're right that every time he coughs wrong, it's on SportsCenter. If Aaron Rodgers decided to play golf today instead of relax, like, who cares, pal? Move on. But the league is always going to look for a villain. We don't have Antonio Brown anymore, so they had to go somewhere else.
Way to throw shade at the Steelers there.
And not just the Steelers. I mean, he was
the Steelers are the winners of the AB
absolutely
ordeal. They milked him for everything, and then said, "You guys can take the empty can."
That's true.
And kick that around for a few teams. Yeah,
the Steelers aren't known for him walking off the field in the middle of a game. That would be the Buccaneers.
True.
Yeah,
True.
Dropping all his pads and just walking off the field.
Anyways, let's go to Avery's loser free agency real quick, and then we'll get into our next segment.
Well, I was just going to go straight up to the Cowboys, and mainly just because I just don't feel like they're willing to make any big moves. This just feels like, and I'll get political here. I'll get political for you. I feel like just like any other president, you come in and you do what the president does, and things just kind of fluctuate a little bit, but you keep moving on. But if you want something to change, if you want something big, you got to go bigger. And I feel like the Cowboys just don't do that. I feel like they're kind of penny pinching, like as if, saving a few extra $1 million is worth, winning one playoff game maybe. But I feel like the Cowboys, part of the reason I feel like they were America's team or kind of got that moniker is just because they were a little bit more out there. They were a little bit more represented, America, or at least that's what people wanted to see them as. And I feel like having a little bit of this cockiness, a little bit of this showboating, a little bit of this kind of like, hey, let's be the team that everyone wants to hate. We're America's team, and everyone clowns on us because we don't win any games in the playoffs when it matters. We want to be hated. We're going to be hated no matter what. We want to be hated because we're good, and we're in your face, and we're talking trash. Like, that's what I feel like the Cowboys, that's how I've always seen them. I'm like, when are they going to get back to that? Where it's like, yeah, you're not winning a Super Bowl every year, but kind of like what the Steelers were in, like, the 2010s. We're, like, just like, oh, God, like, they're good. And like their fans are annoying and we hate them and we would never marry one of them. But I just think that they're not making, the Cowboys now at this point aren't making any good moves. And I feel like it's not really getting any better. And at this point, I think that they should draft a quarterback because I don't really know what Dak's doing. I feel like he has overstayed his welcome. And I mean that not by the fans or anything, but I just feel like in a general sense, it's like, dude, you got to move on.
They can't afford that.
I know. I wonder how many times didn't they pay Dak like an absurd amount of money, like twice?
$60 million a year.
So his cap hit.
He's nice and pretty. He's the real winner of free agency. The fact he doesn't have to do anything, just sit there and just
not even this
in.
year. Last year. Yeah, last year. So
he was such a winner that he's still a winner this year. I'll say he's my winner. The Bears, I'm done with you. Dak.
I don't think there's anything else to say, honestly. There's nothing else to say.
So this year, coming up, he has a $53 million cap hit. Next year, it jumps up to $77 million, drops down to 71, and then in 2028, now, this is the NFL. All of this is fake. All of this money, all of these contracts, it's all fake. So, it's so not real. It's hard to explain how not real it is because they can just restructure or kick the can down the road, like Patrick Mahomes' 10-year deal that he got. All of that, he's never going to see all 500 and whatever odd $1 million of that deal because they're going to restructure and it's going to go away and it's just going to get swept under the rug. But in 2028, his cap hit currently is $80.8 million. $80.8 million.
That can't be real.
I'm looking at it right now. 80.8.
Oh my goodness.
Which is going to end up being 27% of the total cap. How are you supposed to do good? How are you supposed to sign more players? There's a reason that Dallas hasn't signed anybody for over $10 million or $8 million or whatever it is since 2015. They just can't, outside free agents in. They don't have the money, they don't have the room because they keep playing mediocre players to work for mediocre coaches and do mediocre things. We should just bring Jason Garrett back from this point. Just continue to go 8-8, I guess 8-9 now. 9-8, 8-9, and switch it up. 8-8-1 might as well. Just go the most average. We're America's team because we just love to be the most average. And I say I don't play for the team, I don't work for the team. I just have been a lifelong fan. And at 31 years old, they haven't won the Super Bowl since 1995. I was 2 years old. I don't remember that. I'm just sad. It's just sad. I just am sad.
World's okayest team.
For the last 30 years.
I'm going to go ahead and predict that they're going to win the Super Bowl in 2075.
I hope my grandkids and their friends all enjoy that, because I sure won't.
It'll be too little too late at that
50 years from now, when I'm 81 years old living on the planet Mars, I won't like any of it.
That's the same as like winning the lottery or getting an inheritance and then being told like actually there's some like clerical issues, but it's coming and it doesn't come until you're 80. And then you're like, you're like already, you got a couple years left and you're like at this point, like screw you guys. Like at that point, I think I would honestly just rip up the check in front of them just to see their reaction. I feel like that would give me more value than the money at that point. Like just knowing that whole time I've been stewing over this, the Super Bowl with the Cowboys, like just can't make it happen. Can't make it happen. And then there you are. And Will is 80 years old and his grandchild is there and sees it and then takes it for granted. Like, oh, cool. They won. Like, that's just what we do. That's who we be. And then Will's like, these kids these days.
Just like Patriot fans from the early 2000s. I mean, their parents and their parents went a long time, and then these kids in the whole Boston area, or that early 2000s, those kids in Boston, those teenagers, those high schoolers. I mean, the Red Sox were great, the Yankees were great, the Patriots were great, the Bruins were great, the Celtics were great. The whole region was just booming, and that's all those kids ever knew was parade after parade after parade, and it was just, man, life is so good. And then came Mac Jones, and then Drake May.
All right, well, we're getting off track here. We got to get back on track here. So we're running out of time for this segment. So we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into running backs in the draft. Just kidding. We don't have commercials. This is our second episode.
Dang, we're moving fast.
Very confused.
All right, so let's get into our next segment. We're going to be talking about running backs in the draft, specifically running backs who are not named Ashton Genty. So I want to hear from both of you guys. Since we started with Will last time, let's start with Avery on this one. Give me at least one running back that you like in this draft who's not named Ashton Genty.
Oh, I think you already know where I'm going. I'm a big Hampton fan. I've been watching that guy for 3 years. Bulldozes over people. I would say he's not as exciting as Genty, but he has been like the one bright spot on that Carolina team for the past 3 years. I mean, I guess Drake May was there for a bit. I don't know if he was there when Sam Howell was there. But anyway, I like him a lot. The other one, and I don't like saying this, which makes me think it's probably true. I'm a big Henderson fan, Travion Henderson.
There you go. There
you go. I've seen him play a lot, and every time, a big thing is when Oregon or somebody's playing a team and I'm rooting against that team and I see a player and I just wince every time they touch the ball. That's when I know, like, okay, this guy's good. And I think, that's the thing, and he's not even the only guy on his team. They also got Judkins, but I think Henderson looked really special. Hampton is special. I think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be anything electric. Like, I think Ashton Genty, I know I'm not supposed to say the name on the segment, but I think he's got a much higher ceiling. But I think Hampton's got a higher floor. I think regardless, I think he'll be in the league for a while. Especially like locker room talk, like the guys on the team love him. I'm a homer for, Carolina, but Hampton, even last year, I still would have put him up there, but he decided to come back.
So I do like Hampton as well. Hampton is a guy that the more I watch him, the more I like him. The only thing I question with Hampton is his vision is not the best, but he's so big that he can just run over people. So he doesn't necessarily need to have that vision. But Avery, I'm curious to know with Hampton, do you think that he would be best in the role of the top running back on his team where he's the featured guy, or do you think he would be best in a role where there's multiple running backs in the backfield?
For the most part, he was the sole back, so I would say like he could do any of it. I've noticed that he's had a much better, I don't want to say like just, he's been more coachable. He's less of a diva on that team. You don't hear much about him. At least I didn't when I was watching Carolina football, but I see him as a guy that absolutely, in fact, I should just say, I think the best way to utilize him would be when you're driving, 80 yards, and for the majority of it is just running. I think once he gets going, it's kind of like a juggernaut where it's like at any moment in time he can break free, but you never sense that he's slowing down. There's some guys, especially like receivers, you'll see him, or DBs, you'll see that they're, the fatigue is getting to him a little bit. And I always wonder if, the receiver, the quarterback see it and communicate and be like, all right, we're going to exploit this. But Hampton's one of those guys where it's just like a wrecking ball. I remember Ezekiel Elliott playing at Ohio State against Oregon in the championship, and I recognized in the first quarter, I'm like, this game's already over. Like, honestly, I think it would actually be better for Oregon if we called it right now, because this margin is only going to get wider. It was one of those things like every day they were averaging like 7 yards a play. It's like they're never in a third down position. They always get the first down. We can't stop them. It was one of those things where it's like he had no limit. There was no stopping him. There was no slowing him down. And I think Hampton could get to that. Again, I'm still a big proponent of, it largely depends on the line you have. That's kind of what, makes or breaks a running back and a quarterback for that matter. But yeah.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Amarion Hampton is Ezekiel Elliott, so he's going to have a really good first season, and then he's going to decline every season from there.
Every proportionally the whole way. It'll actually be impressive how just linear it is. It won't be any weird drop offs, but it will be. He will make sure that it is, a clean 15% decline year over year.
But don't worry, he'll get a big contract
Yeah.
to do nothing.
Real quick, just on one other thing on Hampton. So I like what you said about him being the featured back, because I also agree. I think he can be the main guy for a team, specifically because he was a factor in the passing game as well. He had 38 catches for 373 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So those numbers may not jump off the page, but you see that he has that ability to be a pass catcher as well. So he can be on the field for all 3 downs. Another back that you mentioned, Avery, Travion Henderson. So I think Will actually likes the other Ohio State running back. So let's get into Quinshon Judkins a little bit.
Did you say Quaidshon?
Quinshon.
Oh, thank goodness. I thought I had his name wrong, much like last week when I couldn't say the other Ohio State receiver, MK Ubeka, or whatever his name actually is. I feel like I got that backwards. I will never get it right. It's just never going to happen. I'm not programmed to say hard words in any language ever. I stick to a base set of words in English, and I do not branch out from them. And let me tell you, I'm still not good at those.
It's Emeka Egbuka.
Sure. I'm glad you can say it.
It's just left. Yeah, what you said. Exactly how you said it. That's it.
Anyway, right?
Quinshon.
Yeah, okay, great.
Quintessence.
Quinshon Judkins. I'm a big fan of him. He's got good size at 6 foot. 221 is what he is currently measured at. Obviously, weight will fluctuate up and down as time goes on. For his size, did not run a much slower 40 than anybody else.
Was it a 4.48?
It was a 4.48. Is there a problem with that?
No.
Are you just
No, I'm
helping
just
me out
asking.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I got you.
his first 2 seasons were at Ole Miss, where he averaged 272 yards, or 272 attempts in a season. His freshman season, he got 1,500 yards, dropped off a bit in his sophomore season with 1,100 yards. And then in 2024 at Ohio State, sharing touches with Travion Henderson, he still got 1,000 rushing yards in that season on under 200 attempts, 5.5 yards average, 14 touchdowns. Also had 2 receiving touchdowns. He's shown that he can both share the load and be the feature back. I think his size and physical abilities, his cuts, his vision, his everything, I think that's going to allow him to excel well in the NFL as a feature back or as a running back by committee. He's getting a touchdown every 16.4 carries over the last 3 seasons. He had 16 touchdowns in 2022, 15 in 2023, and like I said, 14 in 2024. And that number probably would have been higher if he weren't sharing touches. There's a negative spin about him that his production dropped when he got into the Big Ten and competition got harder. But coming from Ole Miss, they say that the SEC is known for its defenses. So I don't know how that really is working out, where he went to the Big Ten and had tougher competition. Doesn't really make sense to me, but the real reason is because he had to share the load. And so I think he is, even if we throw Ashton Genty in there, I still think he's going to be 1 or 2 best running backs out of this class. He'll be a top running back for sure. Looking back at the end of the season at the rookie running backs, I think he will be there, maybe even over Genty for impact and all statistics.
And what I really like about Judkins is the fact that you mentioned that he shared the load with another running back. I think that in today's NFL, especially when you look at teams like the Lions with their 2 running backs, that's what a lot of teams are going to start doing. I mean, you even have teams like the Ravens, who, I mean, I know Derrick Henry was the main guy, but when Derrick Henry would go off the field, they had another running back who would come in and catch the ball on 3rd down. So I think a lot of teams are going to the 2 running backs, and I think that's going to go a long way for Judkins because he has already proven that he can be productive as the starter and then as a guy who shares carries with another running back. So
I actually like Judkins to the Ravens in the first round at the very end.
ooh, that would be
I
interesting.
it's kind of a bit of a stretch the way most every single mock draft is set, but I think both Genty and Hampton are going to be off the board, and so it's basically a mixed bag at that point of who do you want and physical size and play style. I think that if you're much like teams do with quarterbacks, they try to get a backup that's going to play a similar style as their starter. I think they're going to get. I think Judkins is a good 1-2 punch with Derrick Henry there in Baltimore.
That's what they do. They run the ball. Why not add an extra running back who can run the ball? I like it. So my running back, my guy at the running back position in this draft is Cam Scatabo from Arizona State.
Ew.
Ew!
I'm
See what he
guessing
did in
that
the
means
playoffs?
I'm guessing that means you don't like him.
What, you mean when he lost? Yeah, I saw that. I saw him cry on
Yeah.
the field. Baby.
When
I
he
don't
did,
draft babies.
don't you mean when he did everything possible to help his team not lose?
I'd
In
say
that-
everyone else did other stuff, but they all lost. all
Not
the
anywhere
same.
near what he did. In that game, he had 143 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 8 catches for 99 yards, and he threw a 42-yard touchdown pass.
I mean, Tim Tebow had some good big games, and they actually won. But I'm just hating. I like Scatabo. I like Scatabo.
Well, I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar. I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar. But here's why I like him. He gives you everything when he's on the field. He gives you everything he has. If your team is struggling, this guy is going to help you get back in the game. He's going to fire up your team. The reason I like him is because he is tough. If you are a Dallas Cowboys fan, you should want Cam Scatabo on your team because your team is soft. Your team is soft. You need a guy at running back who is tough, and that is Cam Scatabo.
Built Ram tough.
But I mean, I think
he's a scrappy little dude.
he is
Like
scrappy.
an Oompa Loompa.
He is scrappy.
Yeah.
And
With lateral movement.
He gives you everything he has on every single play in every single game, and that's why I love him. I don't think he's going to be a featured guy in the NFL. I think he's going to be best in a running back system where there's multiple running backs who have a role in the offense. And the main reason for that is because of the way that he hits people, the way he plays, and the way he fights. Because just for longevity alone, he's not going to make it that far in the NFL if he's getting 300 carries a season and he's just hitting those guys and hitting those defenders over and over and over. So I think he reminds me of David Montgomery from the Lions, honestly. Like he's best in a system where he has a guy who is a speedster who gets half the carries, and then he comes in and gets the other half of the carries, and he changes the pace and he wears down that defense. That's what I think about Cam Scatabo. I love the guy because of his toughness and because of his fire to win and do everything he can on every single play.
He's got a little bit of that Peyton Hillis kind of energy. The guy on the Madden cover that one time. The one cover that most people couldn't tell you. One who was on it, even if you showed him a picture. Who is this? Still don't know. I think he could have something like that. I mean, here's the thing is I feel like the toughness in college, both basketball and football, matters a lot. I think of like Hansbrough as someone who is just crazy tough. But then you go to the pros and it's like, okay, now you're dealing with like just bona fide talent.
But I mean, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you don't have anybody on your team who's tough.
Yeah.
You're soft.
You got Jerry.
He's the softest of them all.
If his skin is so leathery, there ain't no way that's soft.
Jerry's not going to do it. Jerry's not going to do it because that's not what Jerry does. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys fan, you want Cam Scatabo because he is tough. And your team does not have a single player who is tough. Not one. Not one. And I'm sorry, but you need some players who are tough, who can actually do something when the game is on the line.
Joel, for context, Joel is a huge Steelers fan, has always hated the Cowboys, and this is just more Joel propaganda about the Cowboys.
Steelers, baby. All right, well, since we're talking about running backs, and we're running low on time here, we're going to get into our final segment, which is a game we're going to play of NFL Draft Would You Rather. So, because we were just talking about the running backs, I know Avery has a question that is related to running backs, so we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I got a question. The Raiders. They were one of my losers, but not as much of losers as other teams when it came to free agency. But I think that they are a mess right now, and it's not going to materialize before the season starts. I think they need a lot of help, and I think that they should go for Genty at 6 because they need a running back. Who do they lose? And they lose Jacobs, Josh Jacobs? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that who they lost?
Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I think that the Raiders would be better off going for quantity over quality at this point, and especially with a deep running back class, I think they could go a little lower and not worry about it too much. Like I said, I mean, even Hampton and some of the other running backs, I think they have a higher floor than Genty does. So I don't think it's necessarily worth the gamble. As electric as Genty is, he is still undersized, and it's one of those Scatabo situations where it's kind of like you're really relying on a lot of intangibles to kind of carry him through rather than this being some, Andrew Luck type player where it's like he's crazy good and he's got all the physicals and intangibles that we want. I think, I'm not giving my opinion yet, but should you stick? Not that it should matter. Should you stick with pick 6 or should you trade? I wouldn't say don't trade up. If you say trade up, your opinion's wrong and we're going to move on. But would you trade for something lower, maybe like a lower first round and then a second round, maybe even grab you a quarterback while you're at it? Because I'm not high on Geno. I think he needs someone better behind him, someone newer. But yeah, what would you rather do?
So let me first say, I know your question is about the Raiders, but if I'm the Bears and Genty's on the board, I'm going Genty. But that's only if I'm the Bears because I've taken care of the offensive line. But if I'm the Raiders, here's what I would do. I would rather pick up more picks and get a running back later in the draft, and here's the reason why. So in college football this last season, there were 8 players who ran for 20 rushing touchdowns or more. 2 of those were quarterbacks, Jalen Milroe and Bryson Daly from Army. The other players, Ashton Genty, there's Trey Stewart from Jacksonville State, RJ Harvey from UCF, Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, Caleb Johnson from Iowa, and Cam Scatabo from Arizona State. If you are a team who needs a running back and you need somebody who can score rushing touchdowns, this is the draft for you. You do not have to get Ashton Genty in the first round because you have 5 other guys. Well, 4 other guys. Trey Stewart's not going to get. He's either going to be a very late round pick or he's going to go undrafted because he played at Jacksonville State. But you have 4 other guys in the draft at running back who scored 20 or more rushing touchdowns. Just because of that alone, I'm going to pass on Genty and I'm going to aim to get somebody later in the draft who can still help my running game significantly.
If it's me and I'm the Raiders at pick 6, Mark Davis and my wonderful haircut, I'm going to try to mention that every single week. So just buckle up.
I love it.
If I've got that sweet, sweet half bowl cut, I'm looking to also trade back, and I'm looking at the late first round at somebody who doesn't have great picks this year, and unfortunately that means they're probably not going to have great picks next year. And so you're really taking a gamble when you try to trade back into the same round. But I'm looking at like I mentioned them earlier, like the Ravens, who could probably use some extra help up front, or could use a higher draft pick to shore up one of their positions. Trade up and get a corner, or I don't know, literally anything.
They desperately need a corner. Their passing defense was,
and so maybe 6 is too high. It depends on if Will Johnson is gone or not at that point. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe Abdul Carter's not surgery, drops him a couple extra picks, and he's sitting there. I would really start making calls. I don't think I'm making that pick at pick 6. I personally am not high on Ashton Genty in general, which I do think, in all fairness, skews my opinion. But I think he holds a lot of value, and that pick holds a lot of value. And you can trade back to one of these suckers at the end of the first round who think that they need that, whether it be the Commanders, who have a good running back core right now, but not one of them is locked in on a long-term contract. And they just traded, or they just signed a couple free agent running backs and re-signed some of their own, but that doesn't mean anything. And you've got the Eagles, who have Saquon, but if Saquon goes down, they don't have a lot else. The Chiefs, who perpetually need running backs, not near as bad as, say, the 49ers, but I don't think moving back to pick 11 is far enough to get you what you want. If I'm the Raiders, I'm doing just as was said, I'm trading back into the first round. I'm picking up a Jalen Milroe, or I'm going to trade into the second round for this year, and then first round next year, and hope to get somebody early next year to run my team, because Geno's not my long-term answer. He's my short-term right now stopgap.
Well, yeah, I just think the Raiders should stay where they are. I don't know why they would trade down. I think 6 is a perfect spot.
You look at other positions that they need. I mean, if you go running back later in the draft and you do pick at 6, you could pick like a McMillan because you need another wide receiver.
Yep.
You could use somebody at offensive line. You could use a defender to help Max Crosby, and then get one of these running backs who can score touchdowns later in the draft. So, yeah.
I said it last week, and I guess I'll say it again this week. The thing is that Pete Carroll is a run-first guy. I don't need to bring it up again, but except for that one time. He's a run-first guy, and so we say this all we want. They're most likely going Genty. If Genty's there, they're going Genty. If Genty is picked before 6, I think they trade back. But if he's there, Pete Carroll needs his workhorse running back. He's going to take him, and he's going to pound him into the turf. I think they officially have turf now. New stadium. So, actually, I think it's rollout grass.
It is rollout
grass. Yes, they're going to pound him into the dirt, I guess we'll call it. And because, again, Geno's not the long-term guy.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks who are long-term, let's get into Will's question.
Suppose you are the first-year GM hired by the Patriots. This is your first draft. You have pick 4 this year. You had Drake May last year. You weren't a fan of what you saw. The first 3 picks were Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and Shedeur Sanders. They went 1, 2, 3. Would you rather trade back in the draft to draft your QB as your first-year GM, or would you make the pick and live with another GM's choice of Drake May?
Interesting.
I'll go first.
Go for it.
You stick with May.
Of course, UNC fan.
You stick with May.
I agree.
Also, there's too much of this QB swapping, and I'm not a big fan of it. And I feel like this is the same. We fall into it every year, every draft. There's more QBs that get drafted higher up than we initially anticipated, and I think it's an easy thing. Part of it, I think, is optics by the fans. And then another part might just be the coaching staff genuinely thinking it is the quarterback's problem, or just falling into what, the fans are kind of demanding, which is, if a quarterback's not playing well, it's his fault alone, not anyone else's. We need a new quarterback. And that's what the Browns went through for like a decade. But I feel like
are
with
still
May,
going through.
Yeah. I don't think they've ever really been out of it. I think
No.
maybe they could just get tired of drafting a quarterback, but they'll still just stick with the quarterback that's not working. And here I am being a fan saying it's the quarterback that's not working. But I think May isn't the problem. I think getting Tet, the Arizona receiver, I think that would even be a great pick. I think getting the top receiver in the draft for May, and then try to sell some big boys, some O linemen, like, hey, you want to protect some crafty little young dudes? I think that would be the route I would take. I think it's exciting to get the top receiver. I think the fans as well are still as bought in as they could be for Drake May. I don't think they've turned him. I think they've they either have a soft spot for him. I think it's because he's got a little bit of a baby face, thinking that it's not his fault. It's whoever, the management, coach, whatever. So I think he still has that good grace, which is great for a quarterback because that's that mentality stuff gets in your head, messes you up. So I think getting a receiver for him, I think that'd be a cool pick.
I'd like to remind you, Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, which means Travis Hunter's still on the board at pick 4. You still moving away from him?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Joe?
I agree with you, Avery. I would keep May, and there's 2 things that I would really look at. So I'm going to throw out some more stats because I'm a stat guy. So sacks, 52 sacks given up. You got to get some offensive line help before you get rid of May. You got to give him a chance. Number 2, receiving stats. Their top receiver was tight end Hunter Henry, 66 catches, 674 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, 66 catches, 621 yards, and 3 touchdowns. You cannot be a successful quarterback when those are your receivers. You just can't do it, especially when your offensive line is giving up 52 sacks. You just can't.
But that's a little bit of a cyclical kind of gridlock situation where it's like, whose fault is it? You got the quarterback, who's getting sacked a lot. Then you got the offensive linemen that aren't that great. I guess that's probably the main problem, because then you got the receivers that aren't catching much. So it's like, well, the receivers aren't really helping. It's like, well, because the quarterback can't throw because he's getting sacked. So it's one of those things where even then, like, maybe I'm just more like devil's advocate or trying to like see a different way of looking at it. But I feel like even then, like, I mean, as Tyreek Hill, I had him on my fantasy team. It's very clear. Yeah, if you don't have a great quarterback situation going on, your wide receiver stats aren't going to look that great. And so I think it's kind of indicative on that. In fact, I feel even kind of worse for the receivers because they don't even get the attention on them as to why the problem would be like the quarterback does. They just had a very unproductive year. And it's like, kind of a shame.
Let me read the names of these guys. So there's Hunter Henry, Demario Douglas, Keyshawn Bout, Austin Hooper, and Kendrick Bourne. You can't win football games with those guys.
Brady did.
Maybe.
Did you say Jason Bourne?
Kendrick Bourne. Brady did not. He had Brady Gronkowski and Julian Edelman.
Okay, he had
Welker. He had Randy Moss.
He made these no-name guys into stars. He did not start with no-name or start with stars. He made no-name guys into stars. And so
but these guys haven't succeeded anywhere they've been in the NFL.
But Bill Belichick was a big offensive line guy. He was hey, let's protect our asset. That way he can get these other guys the ball. He can throw anybody, any of these guys can catch the football. I think the problem really starts with the offensive line. There was a couple years where Brady had Randy Moss, right? I can't say he always had no one, which is a bunch of absolutes there. But more often than not, he's not working with a full slate of people. He doesn't have all the stars on his team. He didn't have that regularly. So that's been the Patriot way for a long time. Different coach, same mantra.
I'm just saying I would give Drake May some more help on the offensive line and at receiver, whether that's Travis Hunter or McMillan or even the tight end Warren from Penn State. I would be okay with that.
Well, tight end was their best spot. They got the most production out of that.
Right, but I mean, Warren's an absolute weapon. They just need weapons. They just need receiving weapons.
True.
So, I mean, regardless of who you take, you got to take one of those guys and get some help on the offensive line because you can't judge him based off of that with the help that has been put around him. So,
Bourne is a weapon.
Jason Bourne, yes.
Him too.
Last question. So here's my question for you guys. So here's the scenario. Picks 1 and 2 in the draft are Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. You are the Giants at pick 3, and you have no long-term quarterback on your roster. But because the top two quarterbacks were taken off the board, you're taking calls to trade back. The Steelers, who have pick 21, call, and they want to move up to 3 because they like one of the quarterbacks. Would you rather stay at pick 3 and make a pick, or move all the way back to 21 and pick up picks 21 and 83, which is the third rounder in this year's draft, and then a first rounder, second rounder, and fourth rounder in next year's draft?
Yes. After last week when Joel brought up Jackson Dart, I looked him up a little bit, and I'm a little higher on him now. And I think Jackson Dart in New York could be a fun thing. Plus, with those other picks later, I'm also a big fan of stocking up for picks later on. I see that as kind of the coin toss and deferring, where it's like, let's start the game. Let's just say that you start with it, but like no matter what, halftime, I'm getting it back. And I just like that, like, you have those picks. It's something that, especially if you're able to, if it's costing you too much, then don't. But I think that the pick they have, I'll bet they could go back and make it stretch that value out a little bit more.
So you said trade back to 21, right?
Yes, and so here's the reason is because I know that's a far jump. That's very far to go from 3 to 21. But because you're getting picks 83 in this year's draft, a first and a second and a fourth next year, if you look up NFL trade value charts, so the value for pick 3 is 2,200 points. The value for all those picks from the Steelers is 2,204. So it actually comes out to a better value overall. It just depends on what you want to do.
Assumed value, right? Because we can't know possibly what.
Right.
Yeah. So
assume you're having a draft day with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, Kevin Costner kind of draft,
where you turn one pick into like 5 somehow.
Manhandle the rest of the NFL.
Yeah, and you tell all your staff to go to hell. continually.
Put a piece of paper in your pocket. You're always making the same pick. You're just going to spend more money on a guy. Anyway, not the point. So I'm trading back because we've done this before, right? They had pick 4 and they got, or pick 5, and they got Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon. And what doesn't win games is a defensive end. Just doesn't happen. Right? Look at Chase Young in Washington. They picked him at 4 or 3, and guess what happened? He moved on, and he's no longer in Washington. Went to San Francisco. Now he's I don't know. I lost track of him. So you're not winning games with Abdul Carter. That's not who you need. If the Steelers are high on a third quarterback and they want him to make sure he's there and they want to trade all the way up to 3, I actually think you can get more out of him. You want to jump from 21 to 3? You're giving me the farm and the house too, and the leasing rights. I'm getting all of it. Look at what the at the time Redskins, the now Commanders, gave up to get RG3. They sacrificed decades, it felt like, to get RG3. I think if a team is desperate enough, I'm trading back and I'm getting every last penny I can possibly get out of that team. Because they think they've got something and they want to get their pick right now. Boy, I'm gonna push that until they're about to walk away from me. And be like, you know what? All right, we'll take it. And so your 2200 versus 2204, that's not enough. I'm getting more out of it. You give me more. Sure, that sounds greedy, but that's business. That is business.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. You got to get as much as you can. If you're going to make that jump from 3 to 21, you got to get as much as you can.
Well, and you have to assume that you're not going to get a top 10 draft pick from that next year. You can't because as mentioned earlier, oh man, the only coach I can think of is Mike Holmgren. What is that guy's name?
Mike Tomlin?
Mike Tomlin. Thank goodness. Good golly. Mike Tomlin has yet to have a losing season in his entire coaching career. And they're gearing up to be a pretty good team this year. And if they trade up to get their quarterback, they've got the receivers, they've got the team. They can do it. I don't know. I just don't value that number 1 next year very high. And so I'm going to get as much as I possibly can out of it.
And here's the thing too, from the Steelers' perspective, if you move up from 21 to 3 and you draft, whether it's Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart, if it works out, you look like a genius. Even though you lost all those picks, you look like a genius. Like the Chiefs when they drafted Patrick Mahomes. But if he doesn't, then you look like an idiot. But if it works out, you're a genius and you're going to have one of the best teams in the NFL for 10, 15 years. So, all right, well, we got to wrap it up. We're out of time. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our second episode of 3 Guys, 6 Balls. We will be back next week with more NFL takes. We appreciate you tuning in. And as always, don't forget to keep those balls played with. We will see you next time.